Hey guys, welcome to Wilderness Wonders. Today I want to show you all the equipment that you needed to get started in falconry. Now, just to let you know before we get started that the majority of this equipment is really good for a red-tailed hawk. A lot of this will also work for other micro falcons or other smaller hawks, but most of this, of course, is for red-tailed hawk or around that size because that's what I personally started with. I absolutely loved it, and that's what probably most of you are going to start with as well. Also, before we continue, all of this equipment that I'm showing here, either you can make yourself or I'll put a link in the description below exactly where you can find these various items. I found them all over the place, from Amazon to Mike's Falconry Supply to maybe other weird places on the internet. One of the very first and recognizable things that you need is a falconer's glove or a falconer's gauntlet. These are specifically made in order to handle the talons of a large bird of prey. Not quite an eagle, but any size hawk, this glove will do. I purchased this one off of Mike's Falconry. You can find the link in the description for this particular glove. Now, most falconers like to have their glove on the left hand. I prefer to have it on the left hand as well, and I found it very helpful. Now, I live in a cold state. If you are from a cold state, I would recommend getting a winter glove because the majority of your falconry work that you're going to be doing is going to be in the cold weather. It's lined with some very soft material. It feels really good, and it's really warm during the winter. Trust me, it's so worth it if you live in a colder climate. Another thing that I did add on this glove is this clip here. This will clip onto the Jesses and help keep your bird on your fist. This way you don't have a super long leash hanging around all the time that you're trying to wrap around your glove or tie to your glove. Having this little clip is very nice, and it's designed in a way so that when you clip it and some tension is applied to it, it just makes it tighter, so your bird isn't going to fly away when it's on your fist just by using this clip. I've really loved using this thing. Also, one of the things that you are going to want, you can find an extra glove at any Walmart, but for your right hand, if you are in colder weather, it's always nice to have a warmer, waterproof glove. You can find these gloves at Walmart that are meant to be worn during the winter. The next very iconic thing is, of course, the falconry hood. This is a hood that I made, and I'll put a link in the description on where you can find this design and a video on how to actually make one of these. But you can easily just buy one off of Amazon for really cheap. I would recommend just getting a cheap one at first because you're not exactly sure what size bird you're getting, so trying to get a really expensive hood just to find out that it doesn't fit your bird properly isn't very fun. The link for those cheap hoods are going to be in the description below. The hood really helps when you first capture your bird. For a red-tailed hawk, you rarely need to use the hood after capture day. It just helps right when you capture the bird. You're able to put the hood right on the bird. That way it calms him down right away, and you don't really have to worry so much about him developing an early fear of you. This will just help keep him calm for that time you transport him basically from where you captured him to get some anklets and jesses on him and into his enclosure so you can start the manning process. So the next one is a scale. A scale is very important in falconry. You're going to be weighing your bird every single day to make sure that he is at a proper flight weight. If they aren't at a proper flight weight or at a proper weight, then he may not fly as well. Your bird may get distracted more easily, be less focused on you, or you are accidentally starving your bird to death and you don't even realize it. So weighing your bird is very, very important. Talk to your sponsor exactly what is the proper flight weight for your bird, as well as how much you should be feeding your bird. That is something that you're going to need to talk to your sponsor and is based on each individual bird. Next piece of equipment, this is one that I made. This is a lure. I made it look like a rabbit. I added a little tail. Honestly, you don't really need to add a tail. I just had a little bit of fun with it. I just made it out of some leather, and I bought a rabbit pelt to kind of go on top of that. I stitched it together, but there was another one that I just literally glued it together, and it was perfectly fine. And I stuffed it with polyester. There are many, many ways you can make a lure, or you can buy them online. I'll put a link in the description on where you can buy them. But honestly, you'll save a lot of money if you just make them. So I'll put a link in the description on where you can buy a rabbit pelt. That way you can just make one of these yourself. They're very simple. You want the color to be as similar to a wild rabbit as possible, and this aids in your training process. This is super important. It also can help if you're in the field and you're having a really hard time getting your bird back. It's much easier to call them to a lure than it is to call them to your fist. They get much more excited about this than, you know, your hand. Something you'll definitely need to have prepared on your capture day are anklets. These are anklets that have not been used yet. I'll put some B-roll of some anklets that have been used that I've cut off my last bird. These anklets are going to go around your bird's feet, and they're going to help you attach jesses to them. So you'll want to have these prepared, most likely pre-cut, so at least you have something. Easily cut down to size if you need to, and then put on your bird right away so that your bird isn't, you know, constantly being held like a little football. Something you'll also need when you start flying your bird are flight jesses. And flight jesses are just long leather slitless jesses. They have no slits in them. It's just something for you to hold onto while you're in the field. This is so that your bird doesn't get snagged on any branches or bushes or anything like that while you are in the field. And if your bird does end up flying away, they're not going to get snagged on some tree out in the wild somewhere. So this just helps keep your bird safe. Another piece of field equipment that you will probably need, it's not always necessary, especially if you got telemetry. You don't necessarily need these, which are bells. But I liked them, I used them, they were pretty good at helping me find my bird once he caught something. Now you can't just get any old bells off of Amazon. You definitely need falconry bells. They're designed so they don't get caught in the bird's talons or anything, so you'll definitely want to buy falconry bells specifically. But again, if you are using telemetry, you aren't necessarily going to need these. But I enjoyed using them, so I thought they were good to mention. And again, talk to your sponsor. Some sponsors would prefer that you use telemetry, some of them don't really mind either way. But again, always listen to your sponsor when talking about equipment or care for your bird. So the next tool that you are going to need is, of course, a leash. Now this leash is pretty long. It's about 6 feet long, gives you plenty of room. It also has a swivel in there so that when my bird is attached to it and tied to a perch, this isn't just getting all tangled up and wound up or anything like that. You should never leave a bird unattended while it is on a perch outside. You always want to be able to keep at least one eye on them. That way your bird is safe and not tangling himself around. Another thing you'll need are just jesses. These have slits in them, they have holes in them. So these jesses are some that I made. I also made the leash. If you guys do want me to make you a falconry leash, I got no problem doing that. You can contact me on our Facebook page and I can custom make you a leash with any colors. It'll have the swivel and everything, and I could make you even matching jesses. So I went with kind of red, white, and blue. I love the design that I did here. But these jesses that I'm holding right here are going to be for my next bird, so I'm definitely prepared for them. Alright, so our biggest piece of equipment that I wanted to show you is, of course, this giant hood. Now, there are multiple ways that you can transport a bird. This tends to be the most common and one of the easiest ways to do it. I used it for my red-tailed hawk and it worked fantastic. I got this giant hood off of Mike's Falconry, and again, I'll put a link in the description for that. In these giant hoods, it has a perch on the inside. This way the bird can sit in there and you can close it and transport the bird. The idea is that the bird can stay safe without getting himself hurt or flying around the car or stressing out. It's all just for the bird's safety. It doesn't hurt them at all as long as you train them to go into this properly. Again, talk to your sponsor about using one of these before you actually get one. Most likely they're going to have you use a giant hood. It's very, very common. But again, always talk to your sponsor when you're making some of these big purchases. This one was quite expensive. It is possible to make one on your own, but I honestly was happy that I just bought one instead of continually using the one that I made, because the one I made while it was very functional, it worked great and it was sturdy, it was just so darn heavy. This is really, really lightweight. When you make them out of wood, they're ridiculously heavy, and these ones are super light, so it was really nice transporting my bird around in this instead of a big wooden giant hood that I made. Now this one isn't necessarily a necessity, but it's something that's really, really nice to have, is just a simple bag. Having a really good bag or a really reliable bag while you are working and training with your bird really, really helps. I was able to kind of put treats in this. I kept my falconry journal in here that I was able to kind of record everything with. This one's really reliable. I picked a leather one just because they're sturdy, they're really nice. And I've also attached a knife to it with a sheath there. But I've really, really liked this bag. You're also going to need something to put all your tidbits in. You're going to need a spot to put, your lure in. So having the bag does help a lot. That way you're not just shoving everything in your pockets. So one of the really nice things to have is a hunting vest. It's almost necessary when you are out in the field. You need a spot to put your rabbits. That way they're not visible to your hawk. So this is one that I kind of made. I just got a black vest and I put a pouch on the back, and the rabbits kind of sit back here. I have a few blood stains from rabbits last year, but this has served me really well. I didn't want anything overly complicated. I just didn't like how most of the other hunting vests looked, so I just ended up making my own, which is something you can totally do, but again, I'll put links in the description where you can find more of these vests. They're usually just game bird vests that people use when they're hunting pheasants or quail, and this worked great for rabbits because normally you're only going home with 1 or 2 rabbits, and the pockets are plenty deep for at least 2 rabbits. So this was a very helpful tool. I wore it every single time when I was out hunting. So our last piece of equipment is probably going to be one of your least used pieces of equipment, and that is your falconry trap. There are many different styles of traps, such as Dogazas or BC traps. This one's a BC trap. It's the one that I caught my bird with last year. Worked amazingly well, but this is something that you'll have to talk to your sponsor about how to design one and how to best make one for the bird that you're catching in your area. I don't really want to go into too much detail on how this trap actually works because you may end up using a totally different trap. There are many different styles, so again, listen to your sponsor as to what trap you are going to need to use in order to capture your first bird. Thank you guys so much for watching this whole video. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer questions, but if you have pretty detailed questions, I would recommend asking your sponsor first. They're going to know much better than me as to what you are going for and what you're capturing and your own personal situation, because every situation is a little different and the equipment isn't going to exactly match what you need, but this is some of the basic equipment almost every falconer has and needs. So I hope this video was really helpful. I wish there was a video out there when I first started falconry, so that's why I kind of wanted to put this video out there, because I was very unsure as to all the equipment that I needed. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.